Nearly 3 months ago, I challenged myself to the most unique challenge in Rise of Kingdoms YouTube history. Being called a fighter by TSN Lambo, Plato Gaming, Redline, and Apocalypse Gaming in 1 year. With the dire consequences, I knew I needed to perform. That is why following my spending spree that included 10,000 legendary sculptures, 2,000 legendary materials to create my ideal 7-march setup. I still needed to ball out like 2024 Jokic in my first KvK back to Rise of Kingdoms. So, with my additional 7 years of speedups, my 191 million power, and hundreds of dollars invested into KvK tech, I knew I was prepared to put the kingdom on my back and get a KvK win. It was the brand new Kinnear blades housing 24 C to D seed kingdoms. A good starting KvK to come back to for the game. The camps were divided into 2 alliances. The opponent's side consisted of fire, daybreak, and water camps. Meanwhile, the other side included us, Camp Earth, Greenwood, and Wind camps. But even though these cute little C and D seed kingdoms look weak, don't let that confuse you. These camps consisted of elite fighters with top-of-the-line rally and garrison gear. Not to mention, my Kingdom 2371 included lots of free-to-play and low-spending players. This KvK is going to rely on the only 5 high-spending players in our camp. Knowing I could be the potential sole main rally and garrison leader, I bought the pop-ups, Conquer Wills, and Mountain Warfare bundles to push my tech as much as possible. My main focus was to unlock 6 marches, unit capacity, and attack to not only make my garrison and rallies stronger, but also my swarm marches. Before pass opening, I was on 191 million power with 15.3 million deaths and measly 2.3 billion kill points. These stats were horrible, and that is why I needed to fix them immediately. But it is vital to understand that I'm not just fighting for the approval of these 4 YouTubers. I introduced KvK goals and consequences for every KvK I will have. Specifically for this KvK, my goals for the Zone 5 were to get 25 million kills, be in the top 5 in KvK in kill points gained in this zone, be the top fighter in my kingdom, trade positive, and to win the zone. The consequences would be either to upgrade 1 skill level in a random commander or to max 1 bundle. So, with the consequences in mind and the pass opening, I zoned into getting the most amount of kills possible and winning the zone. The pass swarm went on without any hitch. We were the first to secure the pass, and I was immediately beginning to random TP into Zone 5, quickly wasting over 15 randoms to get close to the enemy pass. I charged with my 6 marches to the enemy, and I was determined to take out any marches I see in my way. It was me against the entirety of fire. Oh, wait. Where are their marches? Let's see. Not here. Not here. Oh, there they are. Behind the pass. Still failing to take the pass. This was when me and a few others just sat on the other side waiting for them to take control of the pass. Nearly 15 minutes later, Fire took the pass and pushed out with all of their troops. I strategically 1v-alled them. By that, I mean ran off territory and then carefully fought them. However, after a few times of sending my marches out, killing some and getting swarmed by their numbers, I realized I needed a new spot. So I went back to random TPing. After just a few tries, I got close to their ball. I would stay in this vicinity for a long time, focusing on their marching troops. Eventually, I got bored and found myself next to their flag line. See, when I invested into commanders a while ago, I thought I would never need a city garrison because, well, I wouldn't be rallied. That's why I stuck with my Charles Martel and unmaxed Theo. But you see all those people outside of my city? They wanted me on fire. So, since I had over 3.5 thousand gold heads still and a desire to make content, I decided to expertise Hera. So I settled with Martel Hera to just protect me for now. But you see, as the rally was approaching, my entire voice chat was yelling at me to just max Gorgo. After minutes of getting yelled at and peer pressured, I spent another 600 heads to make this queen shiny. So I moved over my gear and armaments and prepared for the city rally. The only bad thing, as I was preparing my Gorgo, the rally was already hitting my city, and before I knew it, they cancelled the rally. But even with this trash garrison and this trash Martel commander, I traded positive. After randoming around just a few more times again, I stumbled across my new spot where I would be focusing on field fighting until flag fighting started. And remember all those thousands of gold heads and legendary materials I used? Well, they were putting in some insane damage. And before I knew it, our territories met. I was well over 15 million kills already, as I was just using my 6 marches to focus on gaining kills. But this quickly changed when flags were touching. I found myself garrisoning with my newly acquired Gorgo Hera and rallying their flags with my Ash Zuge. It was a truly beautiful sight, with my other marches pushing the field to clear the way. My first flag rally in over 3 years was on its way. It was my Ash ZL versus PKDX's best Gorgo Hera. After instantly swarming and letting the rally run through, PKDX responded with a rally of their own, a Scipio Martel rally. With our attention at 2 different places, I failed to realize that we had wrong troop types in my rally. After seeing more incorrect troops joining, I decided to cancel. My first rally and garrison reports were both highly positive. The next rally on this flag would be a Nevsky Justinian. I focused on clearing field, and eventually we would finally get this first flag to burn again. We then followed with rallies after rallies, pushing the enemy back on field and trying to destroy their morale before it became our downtime. We were trading very positive, using the bridge in our favor as a strong point of defense and an area to ball before attacking. However, it did make protecting our new flags across the river incredibly challenging, but we still kept on pushing. In just 4 hours following the first initial contact of our flags, I reached nearly 1.7 million T5 deaths, a beautiful sight to see. I was soon left alone on this front, trying to save this flag. I attempted to solo fill, but when I realized it was a 1v all, the numbers of fire bested me, although the report was still fairly even. But because of this burn, we got pushed back, and they began to take the offensive by building out, although they forgot that they had a nearly 200 million power player on their front that didn't care about his troops. I instantly swarmed their building flag, trading pretty positive. But with our activity going on a steep decline, our new plan was to focus on the other alliances, K51 and 1614, as they were a bit weaker. My first target was in the south against 1614, where I instantly rallied and swarmed their flags. And while I just decided to sneak behind their ball and start to solo swarm a Gorgo, then I immediately got fed kill points by this rally. But quickly, our focus had to turn to the north against K51. They were rapidly building towards cutting off our campmate's flag, which would be an absolute disaster. We responded by pushing back their marches and rallies, but we decided that this position wasn't doing us any favors. We wanted to take the initiative, and we saw that they had only one flag that held together their entire flag line. Burning this flag would give us a huge counter against Fire Camp. We first had to build, which they tried to counter by rallying and sending their entire field presence too. But me and Trap would 2v all their troops and swarm down their rally. This enabled us to build the flag and begin to push this singular flag. Their garrison was tough, but following the second rally and my solo swarm, we managed to get the first of many burns. Their response was to continue to widen out the fronts. We were in middle of our downtime. They had much more players. However, when we focused at a single point, we were able to push them back hard. We continued to burn this flag. Trap and I would consistently swarm the flag to disconnect the territory as fast as possible. After 5 swarms, we finally disconnected their territory, enabling us to zero a large portion of their city's that were now off territory. Even though we were able to push them back at this point and cut off a huge portion of their flag line, we were easily swarmed by their superior numbers. Day 2 consisted of us trying to push back at different points. I would push the field, let the rally go, and then swarm, and then just repeat. In just 12 hours, I went from 191 million power to now 156 million power. I was losing lots of troops fast, but also gaining lots of kills. But we found it extremely difficult to keep up with the superior numbers that Fire Camp had. We didn't have enough meta rallies, we didn't have enough garrisons, but most importantly, we just didn't have enough field. We were getting pushed back everywhere, and our main concern was draining our main fighters too early. Despite gaining 30 million kills within a day of the fighting, I lost 4 million T5 troops in that same time frame, which equaled to 40 million power loss. I was having a lot of fun since I knew I was easily able to replenish my troops. However, the rest of my camp couldn't. So after 2.5 days of non-stop fighting, my camp pulled out. We were still able to receive the first occupation of one of the Herons, but other than that, the first zone was a stalemate, and we were the ones that backed out first. That's not to say it was all that bad. Fire took 133 million deaths, losing 1 billion power. Meanwhile, we lost 131 million dead and only about 732 million power, while Fire Camp gained nearly 15 billion kill points compared to our 15.3 billion kill points. Specifically, my kingdom, 2174, would gain the most amount of kill points in the entire KvK up to this point, at 6.5 billion. Personally, in just 2.5 days of fighting, I gained 1 billion kill points, with a staggering 55.6 million kills, split up in 11.5 million T4 kills and 44.1 million T5 kills. I also would gain 5.3 million deaths, losing 55.5 million power. Yet, this was just the first zone, and there's plenty more fighting in this KvK.